So, Alfred, this is our insights section where we go deep into helping, questions that a lot of young folks, millennial, Gen Z have that they would like to learn and insights they can take from your experience. So the first question is, how can college students get the most out of their university experience?
Participate.
Okay.
I think college is designed in a way where the syllabus, the university life are well crafted because it's very mature.
Right.
So you can easily fall into just going with the flow, and you have a good time and then you leave. Unless you try, you go participate.
Right.
I mean, there are magical things inside the university. There are a lot of entrepreneurial club, robotics club, a lot of athletics activities, a lot of the social type things.
Right.
And you see some of the most famous university that they have created the largest amount of successful companies, like a Stanford.
Yeah.
Is not because of the education that it literally gives in the classroom, or it has great facilities, but other schools have those great facilities also.
Yep.
But really it's because the social interactions among the students, that they get together and then somehow they find the right chemistry, and the subject matter they were interested in was compatible, and then they take off and they create companies.
That's how I started.
Right. That's how
Basement of our library at our residence.
That's how Google, Yahoo, and
Yeah.
everything else
Yeah.
has started out of these magical, places. So I think the reason why people ended up in those schools, they thought is because it provides the best education. It turns out they provide the best environment for people to collaborate.
Right.
So if you don't participate, you miss out the opportunity to collaborate, right?
Got it.
So unless lightning struck, it hits on you, which don't count on that, okay?
Yeah.
You're at the mercy of, what comes at you. But the more you are willing to go explore, right, and there are systematic organizations within these universities for you to go participate in the first place, I think you miss out too much. I mean, you miss out how much you have to pay, the student loans you've taken,
Right.
to make that happen.
And what lifelong or critical skills you think young people from let's say from their teenage years all the way to early 30s can learn, like during this time in college, late high school?
I think there are two most critical things that I think is unfortunate you don't directly learn in these universities. One is leadership. So it doesn't really have, think about it, right? What is leadership? Leadership is first picking the right people.
Yeah.
You can't do everything on your own. So almost at all times, picking the right people to do something with
Right.
is the most essential, right? So I'm sure that any students by now know you have met people since grade school that, oh my God, they can do magical things.
Yeah.
So you do want those people to be on your side when you go, start a company. So picking the people is very critical, in the leadership skill. Two is creating an environment for them to put them into so that they can perform, the most that they could do. Very critical, right? And most painfully, sometimes they don't work out. Getting rid of them is also another critical skill. So, so the leadership skill is a soft skill that there's no class you can go to, right?
That's true.
And sometimes I joke about, as a manager for many years, I actually thought I should wish I've taken psychology classes because a lot of it is counseling people, right, and making them productive.
I feel like SEO, my role is a company therapist most of the time.
I used to joke. I said, well, I wish I was a clinical psychiatrist that I actually could prescribe pill and somebody walks into my office and I said, oh my God, what's wrong with you? I said, I give you a pill and then please come back in an hour. I'm just joking. I think those soft skills, be able to kind of read into what people's, because what happened in their life affects their work.
Yeah.
So having that empathy and the sympathy of understanding what they're going through is so critical, right? I mean, like appreciating diversity,
Yeah.
not just complying with diversity is super critical, right? I mean, like we still suck in the engineering world, right? Half of our world is female. We don't have half of the world in STEM. So until we get there, we're losing our way, way, way too much. I mean, that's just so critical, but it's all of our responsibility, to make that happen, to take advantage of it, right? So I think leadership is a very, very critical skill. The second one is communication. The idea is only good if somebody understands what the idea is. Right. And tools have improved dramatically of conveying your idea, but it still needs the storyteller to tell the story perfectly.
Yeah.
And unless you can tell the story, there's no use. To mesmerize somebody in a meeting is how you get funded.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
I see so many entrepreneurs, right? Some are so bad in communication. I spend the whole time trying to understand them. Or what are they trying to do, right? That makes it so much more difficult. That means I'm picking a needle out of the haystack.
Yeah.
But if somebody really convey the idea well,
right.
it makes the world of difference.
Yeah, and as an investor, you don't want to exert cognitive effort in this, right?
Right.
And that creates more questions than answers.
Because you rely on them to tell the story correctly.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure that as it matures, you hire marketing people, etc. But the people that generated the idea must be able to convey and explain the idea and the benefits of the idea really well.
Right. The next question is, how can one follow a successful path, or how can one become a successful entrepreneur or a successful engineer? What is a path?
Well, technically, you cannot follow. Success is not something that you can copy.
Yeah,
it has to be genuine.
Okay,
it really does. And I think step number one: without trying, you're for sure not going to be successful. I think you'd be astonished that timing couldn't be better. And I think in a near foreseeable future, it won't change. That we're so wide open in terms of our willingness to accept new ideas is amazing. See, people don't get shocked with what people say, what they introduce, what you see get posted these days.
Absolutely.
Our level to accept new stuff is unprecedented. So for somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur and not to go try, it's crazy. Okay.
Right.
So first hurdle we have to get through is try. The other thing is, remember, the more is done, the better it will be. So you have to strike that balance that, eventually it has to be done and done.
Right.
Because you have to reach the masses. But you have to be done enough. The idea has to be genuine enough that astonish people.
Right.
Right. And you have to tell the story well enough. So that's super, super critical. Right. But first off, you have to try.
Yeah.
You're not going to succeed if you don't try.
Yeah.
Right. So there's no bad idea. Right. The idea could well be not in the right time, in the right place, may not be packaged well enough.
Right.
So you have to rethink. So that, you have to give credit to Stuart and the rest of the leadership team to say, there's something there. And they were able to cobble up enough of the remaining fund and pivot into focus on doing that. And which is almost unthinkable for a bunch of gaming guys to go into the enterprise software field. But they did.
Completely left center.
But they did.
Yeah.
Right? But that's courage.
Yeah.
And that's going to be required.
Right.
To be successful.
And so when you look at investing in entrepreneurs or hiring folks, what do you look for?
I tell you, the people that walk into this room that I get impressed with first is genuine ideas. That first 5-10 minutes of the discussion, I try to take in and try to kind of read the individual. Not just the idea they're going to pitch me, but how passionate they are and how much they believe in it, right? And how hard they're going to work to get there, right? If I feel relentlessness, I'm already halfway in.
Yeah.
So those are very, very critical element. If they come in and they confuse me royally in the first 10 minutes, that generally is not going to go very well. And I'm older now,
Yeah.
and I'm sometimes can be very blunt and very direct.
You're
and
an honest teacher, Alfred.
I'm definitely am, and I will say, you know what, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I said, please don't come back because you don't need to press me this again. I will never get it. Some of them, they still come back and then they revise and they get better. I actually have those cases. I think those passion and the relentlessness and the glimpse of what it could be are critical things.
No, and I distinctly remember that because, at one point in time, I was going through an M&A process and you looked at it and you looked at me and you were like, yeah, this is absolute bullshit, right? And I was like, wait, what? And then you walked me through. And honestly, you were the one person who gave a very honest feedback of what would work, what would not. And, I took it on, at least for me as an entrepreneur, to, I promised myself that if I don't make this successful, I can't show my face to you out of respect, right? And that just drives you, right? And so yeah, I really appreciate that feedback. So work-life balance, what does that mean for you?
Forget it. I think I don't think it's just this industry, but I think overall, I think even going to school, you guys staying very late up at night, all the way to the library close. What is work-life balance? There generally is no such thing. So I think a much more practical thing to do is, if you actually enjoy your work, that won't be a chore. So then staying up all night studying, if you basically hit it, get an A,
right?
You feel good, is what matters, right? So I don't believe that we can ever achieve work-life balance. I've seen people that have tried to do it. They're good at it, but it's very rare.
Right.
I use a whole different technique. I just use what I call distraction techniques. So you guys saw the stuff that I hoarded.
Yeah.
And people ask me, so where do you find time to do that? We were running a public company, and most of the things that I acquired were through those kind of time. I said, life was pretty tough. I mean, I was under a lot of pressure. We were transitioning from kind of .com to a real enterprise,
right?
To become, from a company losing a lot of money to a company that generates just a ginormous amount of cash. And I was traveling a lot because our customers require face-to-face interaction.
Yeah.
Which that really hasn't changed either.
Yeah, enterprise is the same.
Enterprise is the same, right? So even Daniel, when you sell to a university, you don't show up in a university, they don't buy from you.
Yeah.
Right?
The president and the CIO wants to see your face.
Right. They want to see your face.
Yeah.
So, and I found out later on in my life that actually I don't like to travel. I don't like to sleep in a foreign bed, and even when I got the opportunity to stay in a fancy hotel, I just say, all I see is just hotels, office, plane. And I really never enjoyed it. So I found a way, which is through the collecting process, to meet artists. I had people that I retained to help me build these very small, scratch-built small models, in a small town in France and a small town in Italy. So when I travel, I made it to the point on the weekend to get to them to see their progress. And, they pour 3-4 years of their life into building a little model car. To me, that's a great distraction.
Yeah.
And a distraction that I needed to be able to cope with the pressure that I was under.
It keeps you focused, right?
It keep me focused.
Yeah.
Keep me focused. And so I think these hobbies are critical.
Yeah.
Everybody I met, the public company CEOs that I coaches, the young CEOs that I coaches, I always tell them, I say, find a distraction. Find something that you're passionate about. It could be reading.
Yeah.
Right? It could be writing code. It could be any of the things that people particularly are interested in. Some people are movie buffs. They love to watch movies. And set up some boundaries. For example, I found out one very interesting thing that I do that works very well. I never open up my computer on a plane. No matter how long the flight is. I never crack that open. I made it to a point where...
Wow. I'm impressed.
I made it to a point I never use it. That helps me to kind of having some private time. I know that,
It
if I'm-
resets the brain.
it
It's
resets the brain.
good to do that.
If I have 13 hours, I said, well, you know what? I need to sleep a number of hours on that. And the rest of the time, either I watch a little movie or I'm just sitting there thinking,
Yeah.
right? And I know I could not be interrupted. It's wonderful. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I set up that habit and I just say, well, there's no way I'm ever going to open the computer. I never
Right.
did. And like almost, I get the shocking reaction like you just did. People don't believe me. But it's totally true.
It's amazing.
And it worked.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's funny because in my case, like when you were telling your story about like just getting tired of planes and meetings, I mean, I see that, as well. And for me, what I do is I love talking to interesting people and learning insights. And so part of like this podcast is basically my way of keeping focused, and it's my hobby. So
Actually,
whenever I'm traveling at work or a meeting, this is what I'm doing.
It's actually, you know what? It's great because when you go into a place and racking up a number of friends that you slowly can narrow it down and get closer with, people that enjoy the company, right? Having a meal, maybe just having a chat, right? You
Right.
stopping by, maybe seeing the cars, and we just, having a short chat. Not only benefits you, it benefits me because you have a perspective. You're in EdTech,
Yeah.
right? EdTech is not an area that I know very well.
Right.
And so it's open almost like a Pandora box for me to understand. I mean, I get involved in universities,
Right.
right? I sit on their boards. I know they spend over $6 million a year.
Yeah.
But I never thought of, in IT, they could be quite backwards, right?
Yeah.
So, but that helps me learn and reapply that to help the universities at the same time.
And vice versa, right?
And vice
So,
versa.
yeah,
And technologically, it's eye-opening to see what that could apply into the commercial world as well, right?
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So how do you organize your day?
Actually, it's interesting. I try to change my daily routine for many times. I haven't been very successful. So I get up actually quite early, and I have a habit that half asleep. This is where I'm the most dangerous.
What time do you wake up?
Like this morning I got up really early. I got up at around 6 this morning. This is actually probably earlier than normal.
Okay.
And the first thing I do is have my coffee, and I'm sitting in my office at home and get on the computer. And this habit's gone on for a very long time.
Right.
This is when I sort out most of the emails I have because I got
Okay.
so many emails, and I don't like to have pending emails for too many days because I know how the other person feel.
Right.
So I try to sort as many of the because I know during the day I get so busy with so many meetings, I won't have the chance to do that. So I spend most of my morning, I would say, for the first hour or two, just on getting through my email. And it's great. While I'm doing the email, then I multicast, have other windows. I'm now browsing through the news a little bit. Now, the problem I have with internet news is unless you read the print, the online version of print, which I don't want to do that. You have to rely on the summary because you're reading only the summary and a snapshot.
Yeah.
So then I go to my breakfast table and now I read between 4 to 8 newspapers.
Yeah.
And I'll browse through the paper on the table of contents first, and I will read the selective article. Sometimes I don't have enough time. I'll tear out the pieces.
That's crazy because I've been reading a paper newspaper since I was in grade 6.
Yeah.
It's just a habit.
Yeah.
I just can't.
I love it. It's hard to replace because those are not those are highly diversified.
Yeah.
Now, some newspaper, I'm not going to name which one. I subscribe to one of them. They're highly opinionated. They lean in a direction. They're from the East Coast. But others, I think they were, in general, I think it's very high quality reporting
Right.
that I enjoy a lot. And I think having the physical paper, and sometimes I'll tear off the pages. Then during the day when I want to take a break, then I'll take out the pages and read those. I love that. Yeah.
And how do you manage your time? I mean, you do so many different things.
Yeah.
Any tips and tricks on managing time?
My time is actually not very well managed, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I have the entrepreneur CEOs come see me at night at home. They show up at my house at 8, 9 o'clock and they stay till 1 o'clock. I have a hard time chasing them out because most of them...
Sorry about that. Yeah,
Right,
I'm one of them, so sorry about that.
but because most of them, the subjects are very interesting to me. And keeping things confidential is one of the very key things. So,
of course.
So then ended up the entrepreneurs will share Yeah, it's interesting. When I was CEO, I really felt it was very lonely at the top. And it turns out you don't have to be CEO of a very multi-billion-dollar company. It's lonely, period.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
when you're CEO of a company with 20 people, you're lonely. When you're CEO of the world's largest company, you're lonely.
yeah,
You really need somebody to talk to.
yeah,
So having just a sounding board, even my advice is not useful. It is still good because as you talk through it, you have a different perspective. You say, now I think of it differently. So I don't want to change them out for that reason. So my days are not really well balanced. And I'll be honest with you, on my weekend, sometimes I still catching up on my email. Sometimes on the weekend, I still go to these breakfasts. I told myself that, when I sold a public company,
Right.
I'm going to this life that I'm investing and running smaller companies. I'm not going to do that anymore. Still on a Saturday, I'm
Yeah.
still meeting with people. I'm still interviewing people because there's just not enough time.
And Alfred, I will say on behalf of all the entrepreneurs that we really appreciate that. We spoke about the old wisdom, or in your case, wisdom, because you're not that old, and sort of the younger sort of exuberance of youth, as you may want to call it. Like it's amazing. Like it's almost like a fountain that the rest of the entrepreneurs get to drink from and learn and get perspective. Right?
Then
Yeah.
it's always a difficult thing. I think what happened is, like Silicon Valley have an interesting phenomenon now. So we have a lot of companies are run by professional managers. They're not
Yeah.
founders,
They're not founders. Yeah.
right? So they can come up from sales and they're marketing, some from engineering, and they became professional manager. These are not companies they founded. They may not be the most passionate about the company. Some are very passionate. Some they really are doing a very good job managing it professionally and making them very stable and very successful. And then we have the founders, right? Now the early investors loved founder managers.
Yeah.
So having that mix
Yeah.
is crucial for the survival of our industry. Our industry is actually in some ways terrible because there's not much legacy to speak of. We don't have many legacy company, right? Unlike other industry like look at transportation, energy, healthcare,
Banks.
Banks.
Goldman Sachs.
they
those
could
guys,
last
yeah.
200
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
at least over
Yeah.
100.
Yeah.
We don't have any of that,
Right.
right? Our industry is churn and burn and,
Creative destruction.
creative
Yeah.
destruction.
Yeah.
So it'd be great that our industry will have legacy at some point.
Yeah.
And to have legacy, you need to strike that balance that you have people that have the institutional knowledge, but they might not have all the propensity to understand how immediate, rapid innovation and the madness looks like.
Madness. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's only,
Yeah.
it's only correct that at some point in time, as you get more experience, you tend to take less risk because you already seen all the things that could go wrong. As you have no knowledge at all, you take on all the risks because you don't know what can possibly go wrong. See, I love that. I love both,
Yeah.
right? And so in some way, I'm looking for entrepreneurs that have very little experience because the things that can come out of their mouth can astonish me because I never thought of it before. I can't tell you how many times in the past few years I was at all with an idea that I never thought someone would have think of something like this. It's so crazy. Okay,
Right.
some would be so crazy I said, "Well, this is not for
That's
me."
too crazy.
Okay, but
Yeah.
there was some that I just thought, "Oh my God, it's total reinvention."
Yeah.
Of something, right?
That's beautiful.
It's just, my God, it's beautiful. It really is.
That's why I love what we do. It's
Yeah.
just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And is there a any mental framework or sort of cognitive toolkit that you've learned that helps you improve decision making that you can share with other folks, right? Anything, we deal with stressful times. We deal with area where we don't have all the answers. Any kind of guidelines or framework that have helped you make better decisions?
When BA was founded, I had my first mentor. So his name is Ed Scott. So Ed's a very unique individual. Ed, he was brought in to join the team as a sales guy. It turns out Ed's a good sales guy. It turns out he really is a good deal guy.
Okay.
The best I've ever met in my life.
Wow.
I never met anyone before or after him that's as good as he is.
Okay.
And he and I was travel a lot, and we were doing a very magical deal. I think this was in the late 90s. And we were in Provo, Utah. And Ed was proposing to buy a technology out of a large company. And I said to Ed, I said, how would they ever let us buy this? They said, well, give them everything they want. I said, give them everything they want. I said, how could we afford that? I said, well, Alfred, we'll worry about that later. I said, well, how could we not worry about that?
Yeah.
Okay? Because we can't afford to do it. I said, well, let's worry about that later. Let's get them to agree to sell us the thing.
Right.
And he said, Alfred, you understand something. I said, the art of dealing is you have to give the person what they want, therefore they want to do the deal. Once you get to that place, now you have to figure out, what do I want? Okay?
Yeah.
What do I need and what can I afford to do?
Right.
And now that's where the negotiation and grinding starts. And I thought that probably was one of the most insightful things that I've ever seen is the art of negotiation.
Right.
But isn't everything is the art of negotiation?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
You right off the back, your idea, you have to make compromise because you have to make it practical
Right.
to get out to the world. You're negotiating with your founders and say, what's your take? Okay? And how much do you have to give to the employee? How much are we willing to give up on each one of the round that we're going to be selling to investors?
Right.
Okay? And you're negotiating. And you're constantly negotiating with your investors also. And then you evolve from there. And now you're negotiating with your customers. I mean, that's a
Never stops.
never-ending deal, is negotiating and making compromises all along the way.
Right.
That's a soft skill, right? That's a very, very crucial skill to learn to get through this.
Yeah.
And that you have to learn on the fly.
Right.
There's no school can teach you that because people ask me, I said, well, how do you know there's a deal there? I said, I can smell it. I walk into the customer, I said, there's a deal here.
Yeah.
Right? I walk in an investor, I said, I think these people will invest.
As someone who sells and invests, like I know what you mean. There is something. I wouldn't say it's entirely instinctual, but just pattern recognition. You start to see that this is probably going to happen or this is not going to happen, and both customers can say, hey, this was a great presentation, but you know the nuance. Yeah.
You go see Ben Horowitz. I'm sure Ben will say this. Ben will say, if this is someone that invented fire and walks into the door, it can pitch the fire like it's the world's biggest fire, right? And this person basically said, I don't need your money.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
You're all in at that point,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So I think those skills is crucial to hone, right?
Perfect.
But you have to take that steps.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, on that note, Alfred, thank you so much for sharing your insights. Yeah. I think folks will benefit that a lot. And is there any if folks want to follow your work or any of your writings, is there a blog or anywhere folks can learn more about you?
Actually, I don't have a blog.
I've been asking you to write one for years.
I know. I know that. And actually, my other mentor, Bill Janeway, who's probably one of the greatest investors I have ever ran into, have been encouraging me to write a book summarizing, I think, this journey.
Wow. I
think at some point in time I may.
Okay.
I just kind of felt the time hasn't gone to that point yet. I am doing some work now that I think soon will allow me to regularly publish some of the thoughts and things that I would like to do.
Great.
That I'm working on, mostly because I think my passion for the future of students, the next generation of entrepreneurs, I think it's now I get aggregated enough amount of work that I think soon I'll be able to summarize them in a fashion that I think on a regular basis, that I can tell short story about things I've seen, people I met, and things I've learned to share with everybody.
Great.
So stay tuned. I think and I'll be honest with you, Daniel. I said for the longest time I have thought about documenting the things I've collected. I just don't want it to convey the wrong message.
Right.
That because these are not things that people need.
Yeah.
Right. These are things that I loved.
Yeah.
And for people to understand why I love them,
Yeah.
if they spend enough time with me, you actually seen
Yeah.
me here, they will understand. For some, they could easily get misinterpreted.
Right.
So I certainly don't want to be in that category. So I'm just trying to tread the water very carefully.
Absolutely.
And hopefully then I think I would love to at some point just share all of that with everyone.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll stay tuned and we'll share your work as soon as it gets out.
All right.
Thanks
you.
again,
All right.
Alfred. Take care.